Shazam, issue 18, Josie Campbell writing with Dan McDaid on the art. So, yeah, this is the third issue of this arc, and things are kind of really going down. Mary is effectively being held captive, fighting these big villains, the big robots and whatnot.
The Monster Society.
Yeah.
They're all taking turns attacking her and Hoppy.
Yeah.
Right?
And Georgia Savannah is, monologuing at her and all the rest of it. And Mary's even like, why are you doing this? These are monsters. You're not a monster. And she's like, you're wrong about that. I am a monster.
She's just, oh, what a sweet thing to say, that she rips open her shirt, Superman style. She has one of her phones implanted in her chest. And she wasn't totally wrong.
She blasts Mary Marvel with what looks like radiation or something. It's like a bat signal's behind her, but it's like a green light that's slowly hurting her. It
definitely reminds me of what created Dr. Manhattan.
Oh, right? Sure. I can see that.
So yeah.
So Billy and the Captain can sense that something's going on, that Mary's in trouble, and they also hear from the others that Freddy is in the process of trying to kill people, homeless people, because they're, as far as he's concerned, they're a waste of space. And like I think there's like a line from the TV here from like the villainous propaganda that says, it's not violence when you're cleaning up the streets, then it's just justifiable. So the Captain shows up to stop Freddy in his weird reign of terror. There's actually a really great page here of like 4 vertical panels where Freddy punches the Captain, and he goes like through a building sort of at an upward angle, and each like panel is like the next stage of it. So panel 1's the punch, panel 2 is like the Captain Marvel flying upwards, and then the next panel is like he's going through floors of the building, and then he's like falling down in the last one. I thought it was a really cool page.
It was a very cool page because you're following it very clearly. The trajectory's all there. And then Freddy comes up and swats him back down, right? Yep. He's at the top of that last column.
Yeah. And Freddy beats the crap out of the Captain and like sort of wraps like a fence around him, and the little voice inside the green bolt on his chest is talking to him. And what's interesting here though is that Freddy's narration starts to like beg for it to stop. He's like, why can't I stop? I don't want to go this far. But then the green narration box of the entity in his chest is like, no, like this is what we want. This will give us everything. This is how I get in. It almost feels like if he drives Freddy far enough, he'll eventually be able to just take over completely.
Yeah. And the more that the green text talks, the more it focuses on inside Freddy's lightning bolt, the thing that he put on there, what they went to Festus to talk about. It's growing like a face almost. Right? It looks kind of like a skull, or like a bug, like an exoskeleton kind of face. And the more that Freddy tries to fight it, the more personification it starts to take. Right? I thought that was a fun touch.
Yeah, and Freddy's narration by this point is basically begging, please don't do this. No, Billy. So he's in there begging to not hurt Billy. So Freddy's really in there. And it's actually an interesting reveal is that the Captain kind of disappears from the scene, and it turns out in the next page that the neighbor character, the girl whose name I'm forgetting.
Yes, I'm looking it up because he says it to her.
Yeah.
It's not coming up right now, so we'll.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
Of course, it's the neighbor.
Yeah, it's the neighbor. It doesn't matter. She like has picked him up in her car, and is like driving the Captain, and Billy chooses to say Shazam to save the Captain because the Captain's dying, and the Captain's like, I'm not a real person anyway. I'm just a potential of what you can be. But Billy's like, no, screw that. I'm saying Shazam. I like people I care about have left me before. I'm not letting it happen again. So he Shazam. So now the neighbor girl actually knows that Billy's the Captain, right? Because she turns around and she sees him. He's like, wait, you're the Captain. And he's like, hey, you're going to have to keep a secret for me too, right? And he's like, hey, I need to go and save Freddy. So he convinces her to turn around, and she screeches the car around. So I really like bring her in as more of a recurring supporting character, especially since she might be a love interest for Billy potentially, if that's where we're going with this.
Well, and there's definitely a triangle between her and Freddy and Billy, right? Because we know that Freddy's really into her too. By the way, her name's Bo. I finally found it on the page. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, triangle may be a bit of a strong term, just because I never really got the feeling that. I mean, maybe she'll end up liking Freddy instead, and maybe it will be more of a triangle. But at least so far, it feels more like just Freddy got jealous and wanted to impress her instead of Billy, you know, with the van and whatnot. But
the Shaz van.
Oh yes, how could we forget? Meanwhile, though, the robots from the Monster Society are blasting the city with this green gas, and Mary apparently has been teleported to the moon.
That's what it looks. So, I think so, but also, from what I know about Mr. Mind, is he's from Venus, right? So,
it could be Venus, yeah.
Yeah, so the distance from the Earth that we see in the background there looks further than the moon. So I'm wondering if part of this plan is to bring more of Mr. Mind's kind.
I mean, I'm not convinced you can tell that from comic book art how far it's meant to be. But what I would point out, though, is that the color of the ground does not look like the moon, which is why I questioned it, because it's not that sort of typical grey white. It's more of a yellowy. I was like, so Venus. That said, though, when I think Venus, I think volcanoes. So I don't know if that's.
Yeah, me too. Well, I also think gas, like it has an atmosphere, but it's super dense, so it wouldn't look like the moon, which has no atmosphere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this doesn't look like it has an atmosphere, which is why it also feels kind of moon-like. So I'm a bit torn. Unless you mentioned
maybe it's the moon of Venus. Why not? Does Venus have moons?
I was going to say, I don't think Venus has a moon. I could be wrong, but...
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's like, hey, you're going to asphyxiate, so let's talk before you do, because we've teleported a little bit of oxygen up here. So yeah, Georgia Savannah is sitting there with her. That said, though, Matt, there's a bunch of what seems to be the same species as Mr. Mind on the ground, which would also imply Venus.
That's what made me think Venus, was there all these little critters.
I think you're right. I just think that there should be an atmosphere, and it doesn't look like there is one, and that's what made me double question it.
100%. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. Oh well. What?
Does Venus have a moon? That's
the Cliffire.
Venus does not have a moon.
Yeah, I didn't think it did.
So we'll just say this is the highest point on Venus, and that's why there's, But you're right. Volcanoes, all that other type of stuff that we learned. But again, it's also a talking space worm. It's Mr. Mind, centipede, whatever he is, so, and it doesn't have to be biologically accurate.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't happen to remember or know that Mr. Mind came from Venus. If it wasn't for that factoid, I wouldn't have even, I'd have just assumed it was the moon. But yeah.
Again, we engage in comics very differently.
Yeah, I don't have an encyclopedic memory like you seem to for weird facts.
Yeah. It's called factoids, and they're fun. It's like a flash fact. It's funny. That's why I always feel like I loved Wally West, because he would start with like flash fact. I do the same, but when I call it a Matt fact, my family gets very annoyed. So,
You should be saying there is as a matter of fact.
Hey, I like that. I'm gonna try that out at Christmas.
Yeah, you emphasize the mat and matter.
Yeah, matter of fact. Ding.
All right, bloody hell. Yeah. No, I enjoyed this issue. I think this story's been I mean, I like the Subway stuff from before, but I think this one's really ticking. It feels like it's doing a lot with Freddy. It's like I like that they're developing the neighbor character into a more recurring, prominent role. That stuff's cool. The art is good. It's not amazing. Like all the is kind of serviceable at times, but there are some good layouts. Like we said, that punch through the building's like a really memorable moment in the issue. So, no complaints there. And I do appreciate that, like Mary and Georgia having more of a one-on-one thing is also giving. It feels like the three main family members all have a good amount to do in this arc, which is nice.
They all feel like the main character.
Yeah.
Right, which is kind of a fun balance to do in a book like this.
Yeah, so curious to see where we go next time. But what are you giving Shazam, Matt?
I'm gonna 7.5.
Yeah, I mean, I could. You're probably about right. I think I could maybe be tempted to bump it up today. I think if the art was just a little bit more my taste, I probably would bump it up. But I think I'll agree with the 7.5 as it is.